Book 26 of 2019 was Empathy, Why It Matters and How We Get It, by Roman Krznaric, maybe? So, I was in Waterstones, really love Waterstones, and saw this on the shelf, and I was like, well, that's a nice book, like front cover. I'm kind of like attracted to book covers, which is not good because the other one that I did, the other book review thing on Rumours, was also a beautiful cover, but wasn't very good. And I bought this at the same time as well, which really kind of like annoyed me. So I was like, okay, empathy. I want to find out about empathy. I want to, you know, like find out more about it, because it says why it matters and how to get it. So it was the how to get it bit that I was interested in, because I was like, am I empathetic? Am I not? I think I kind of thought maybe I was a bit, but maybe I could be better. So I kind of was attracted to it in that way. And it also says a quote from Brené Brown. So I was like, okay, like she's quite respectable. I've read one of her books and she's okay. And she put, but actually, looking at it now, it's just a quote from Brené Brown, so it doesn't actually tell you anything about this book. It kind of starts off talking about how empathy is quite powerful. So it talks about, there was this designer who dressed up as an old woman to kind of figure out the problems that old people might have with like just daily living. So she designed products like, so for example, a fridge that was easier to open with people that had arthritis. So she only kind of got that understanding and that viewpoint from imagining what it was like to be an old person. And so the author talks about how there's like six, is it six? It's like, everyone likes 6 steps, don't they? Yeah, there's 6 habits. So 6 habits. So the first one is, it says 6 habits of highly empathetic people. It says switch on your empathic brain. Recognise that empathy is at the core of human nature and can be expanded throughout our lives. Like, it's basically saying that people have empathy. Make the imaginative leap. So imagine your enemy. Like, it's like, come on, like, I'm not being funny, but it's not hard to imagine somebody else's viewpoint. Like, we learn that when we're like little children. Like, obviously as we get older, I mean, I don't know if I'm just like, I've read loads of books from various different cultures. I've travelled loads. Like, I watch like different media from different countries and things like that, like foreign films and foreign kind of TV series on Netflix and stuff like that. You know, maybe I just have a greater ability to perceive somebody else's situation. I don't know, like, I don't want to, you know, we always think, like, don't we, whenever we kind of like talked about something, that we've got more of whatever it is, you know, like we're a great driver, or, you know, we're really intelligent on an intelligence test, or, you know, we're really kind of like outgoing or whatever. So I'm like, oh, I'm really empathetic, like maybe I'm not. But like, it was just a little bit far-fetched in that sense. And it says seek experiential adventures. So obviously, like, you know, immerse yourself in a different culture or whatever, obvious. And then it says travel in your armchair with literature and art and social media. And then inspire a revolution, trying to change everybody so everybody becomes more empathetic. So that's essentially the structure of the book. So it's kind of like a bit chatty, like there's not much research in it. It's not really backed up by many studies. It's like talking about Charles Darwin and Herbert Spencer about, you know, survival of the fittest now, like empathy, you know, is good for us as a species. It must have evolved somewhere, but again, very, very brief overview skating of it. Then it talks about child psychology and the discovery of Homo empathicus. I'm sure they've just made Homo empathicus up because if you like Homo sapien and they put empathicus at the end, because then later on they've got like self-centered like this, which basically just made me irritated. I was like, why do you need to put Latin terms on that you've clearly just made up? Like, are these actual things? Like, it just seems like you're just putting that to kind of, you know, instead of just like making a term up that wasn't using Latin. Like, why are you using Latin? Like, is that making it more like believable, like substantiating it? Like, it was just annoying, because I was like, why do you need to put that? What was interesting was that So empathy and sympathy. Is that sympathy? I think in olden times we would say sympathy but mean empathy, and then it kind of like changed, and so then that's why now everyone refers to it in a different kind of way. I can't remember exactly what was specifically said, but that was essentially kind of what they were saying. Yeah, can you see I'm skimming? There's like literally nothing else to kind of like talk about in it. So that's that. Step 2. Yeah, not really much there. We were saying something about because someone's child had died, that made it easier for the other person to understand people dying in other countries. Well, I'm sorry, but I don't need to have a child die of mine to empathise what it's like to lose a child. I can imagine that being absolutely horrific. Like, how is that not? How are people not? You know, just because you're not in that situation, you haven't experienced it, doesn't mean that you can't empathise. Like, is that not what empathy is? It was saying about how people had kind of gone into different areas of like society, like so a guy went undercover as like an immigrant worker and worked in like really horrible jobs to, you know, be empathetic towards like the situation that they were in. And again, do you really need to do that to have empathy? I mean, maybe nowadays, like, we're used to watching films that portray what it's like to be like as a slave, what it's like to be like, you know, discriminated against, whatever group you come from, whatever section of society you come from. So maybe we're just, you know, reading books about it and stuff. Maybe that's where my empathy's come from, because I have so much experience of different, because I'm kind of attracted to things that I don't already know, so I'm always like seeking out new stuff. So maybe that's just why I think this is pretty obvious, but I would worry about people that don't have this empathy. So like this author's suggesting that they should have like empathy holidays where you can like go and experience something that you've not experienced before to give like a different understanding of different people. But don't you do that anyway when you travel? Like, that's what I do. Like, I went, you know, and did a TEFL course in Thailand, rural Thailand, to find out like what it was like over there. I didn't go in the tourist bits like I did afterwards, but like when you go to somewhere and you want to go and see what the actual culture's like what's the point of going tourist wise if that's just really the same everywhere you go? Everywhere's kind of modernised in the touristy areas. It's not going to tell you much about the actual place. And it was kind of like, she was suggesting that practice the craft of conversation to find out about other people. Well, don't you do that anyway? Don't you chat to people and ask people questions about things? It says there should be like a conversational entree. So like there's questions like such as, what would you most like to change about your philosophy of love? Can you imagine asking someone that who you've just met? Like, what is your ideal way of growing old and who might help you do it? Like, they're just ridiculous questions. Like, you know, I can understand like, have your ambitions affected your humanity? It's funny actually, because I do some videos called Under the Skin that's asking similar questions to these, but not as weird as those, to actually kind of uncover like deeper things about a person. But I think once you get to know somebody, you can ask them those kind of questions, like if you want to. Like, you know, if you want to find out about someone, like you do ask. So like I always ask people questions that are a little bit more hard hitting and a bit heavier than what normal conversation is, because I'm genuinely interested, and actually you connect better with people when you do that. So this is saying, you know, take off the mask. Well, yeah. What else does it say? Yeah, it's talking about like how photographs and the media can get you to understand about like child labour, you know, like war in other countries and how horrific that is for people. I guess maybe we wouldn't know that, like, back, you know, like 20-30 years ago when we weren't, you know, the internet wasn't as great as it is. We weren't aware of what was going on really in different places. Maybe we didn't have empathy. You know, maybe there's more empathy for like asylum seekers now than there has ever been, because we understand like what they're fleeing from. Like, we understand that they're in a war zone, they're going to die or be attacked or whatever as they're trying to live their daily lives. Like, of course they're going to seek asylum in our country. You know, we should have empathy for that. You know, I find it really bizarre how people criticise asylum seekers, or people just generally wanting to have a better life in a new country. Like, if that was you, would you not want that? You know, if there was some country somewhere else that was amazing, that you'd heard loads of good things about, would you not travel to it and put your family in that country? Because I bloody would. You know, I just don't get where the kind of criticism comes from. Like, you have been very, very lucky to be born in a great country. Why would you stop other people from living there? Like, that's so selfish. You know, if you want to go and live somewhere else, you can do that. So why, you know, because you're privileged, you're allowed to be able to do that. Why can't somebody else travel for, you know, walk for like weeks on end to get to the country and then be chucked out when they get here? Like, yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? And then inspiring a revolution, being more empathetic with other people. It's a bit chatty, it's a bit discussion, it's a bit like, I guess, getting you to think about empathy. But if you are a loving, kind of nice person, you'd be empathetic anyway. Like, I just don't get how you can go through life, should I say, and not have these skills and not be empathetic towards people. Like, but obviously there is people out there. Of course there is, because there was people before they, you know, designed things for specific people that just designed generic items and expected everybody to be able to use them. You know, there was no empathy for children in a factory mill. Like, there wasn't. So obviously I think it comes from like a cultural like attitudes change with time, don't they, and exposure to different things. So maybe that's why empathy is. I think perhaps this book would have been great 20 years ago. Probably would have been awesome then. But I think we kind of know everything that they're talking about already, and I think it's a bit. I mean, maybe they started writing it quite a while ago. I mean, when was it published? 2014. It's not even that long ago. Like, why is that? Did it say they're from? Oh no. So yeah, I think it's a bit dated, really. I think maybe it would have been great, like, 20 years ago. But now, you're not really telling me anything I don't already know about empathy. But maybe I'm not your target audience. So, if you're not very empathetic and you don't really see things from the people's points of views, or you struggle with that and find that difficult, then maybe this would help you. But I'm sure there's other books out there that probably do it a lot better, to be honest.